everybody, and welcome to the show. You're watching Good Morning Sri Lanka on MTV Sports, and I am your host Wasam for this morning. And we have a guest in the studio for this morning's show who's actually been on the show a few times before, and I've also had the pleasure of interviewing her before. Of course, she's Dr. Maya Cockram. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And she is our parenting expert. And also she has her own thing called parenting expert for mums in Colombo, right, Doctor?
That's right.
Or should I say Maya?
Please call me Maya.
All right. Okay, so this morning's topic is actually about sibling rivalry. And of course, I'm sure you have a lot of issues with kids fighting all the time, and sometimes certain siblings have inferiority complexes as well within the family. And of course, and I think we're going to talk about sibling rivalry for kids, right, Maya?
Yes, that's right.
So to begin with, if you could just tell me a little bit about what sibling rivalry, if you could put a definition to it.
Sure. So sibling rivalry is when there is any kind of animosity or bad feeling between two siblings in a family. Okay. It's very common, and to a certain extent it's also normal. But as a parent, how we parent our children matters in terms of whether they get on or not. And why this matters so much is because sometimes sibling rivalry can become very strong, and that can extend on to adulthood.
I see.
Now, your siblings are actually the people that you have the longest relationship with, second to your parents. So I'm sure you know it's important that that's a special relationship, and for most people it's a special bond. But I'm sure you know, and I know, many siblings who for various reasons hate each other, resent each other, don't talk to each other. So what I'm sort of talking about today is, as a parent, how we can, help our siblings get on.
I see. In many instances, Maya, you find, just as you said right now, in many instances you find the fact that they always have some reason or the other to fight.
Yes, that's true.
Right? I mean, it's something mums and dads always have to put up with, and of course, I suppose it's very important on how parents deal with that situation as well. But before getting to how a parent could deal with those situations, could you tell me what could be possible causes for fights to occur among siblings?
Right. Well, if you think, when you have your first child, they are the only child, then they get 100% attention. Then maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 years down the line, another child is there in the family, and all of a sudden all that attention is towards that new baby. That is when this problem starts.
So basically, are you saying usually it starts with the older kid?
Yes,
okay.
Very much. I mean, there are so many parents who write in to say, how can I help my older child accept the baby? And there's lots that parents can do. Can I give some sort of ideas?
Sure, please.
So, I mean, one thing that's really important is that the older sibling is involved with the pregnancy, understands about the baby. So for example, I have 3 children. They're now 14, 12 and 7, but when my second son, I conceived my second son, I took my older son to all the antenatal appointments. So he saw the scan, he got excited. I spoke to him, the baby's in my tummy. He would sing to the baby.
Wow.
Make it very special. And you don't say things like, and when the baby comes, there's someone to play with. Because, then the baby appears and it's this squalling little red-faced thing, and the child's like, where's my companion? Another important thing, I think, is when the baby is born, that the child understands what's going to happen. So you say, mommy's going to go to hospital, but, you're just because the baby's going to come, but you're going to visit. And it's really important that the older sibling gets a chance to touch the baby, to love the baby. Maybe he can select a small toy for the baby, and very often, parents would buy a toy from the baby, if you like, for the older sibling as well. So those are little things that you can do to help for the older child to accept the younger baby. And very often they get on fine until the second baby starts moving around, and then jealousy sets in.
Especially when there's communication happening between the two?
Yes, when there's communication happening, but more than anything else, when the older one wants mom's attention, but mom has to give the attention to the baby. So I also say, you know, it's custom practice for when a new baby is born, people come bearing gifts. And for my kids, I told all our friends and relatives, don't bring a present for the baby, bring a gift for the older child, because you know the baby doesn't know any better, and to make them feel loved and wanted. And I think that's the start of it.
I see. If, in your opinion, do you think it's better to have the fact that siblings have an older age gap between them?
You mean a bigger age gap? Well, the statistics show that if you have another sibling from say 9 months, a 9-month age gap, my goodness, very difficult for mom, up to the age of about 2, it's easier, because you know the older sibling can't remember what it's like to be on their own. And after that, between the ages of 2 and 4, that's when the rivalry is really at its most. Most people have their babies, you know, in that age gap. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of rivalry, but mom and dad need to make sure that each child is treated in a special way.
I see. On that note, Maya, we're going to go in for a short commercial break. I'd like to actually pick up from where we stopped when we get back, so stay tuned. We'll be right back on Good Morning Sri Lanka. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka on MTV Sports after the break, and on the show with me is Dr. Maya Cockram discussing sibling rivalry with us. So Maya, I mean during the last segment when we ended off, we were basically talking about the importance of not treating your kids equally.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because like everybody has this perception of the fact that okay, you need to treat your kids equally, but that's not what you said. You said that you need to treat your kids differently. Well,
fairly. Right? If I'll give you an example, you can't possibly treat, say, a 3-year-old girl the same as you would treat an 11-year-old boy. They both have different needs, different wants. So that's what I mean when I say you need to treat your children fairly and not equally. The problem happens when parents try to do things where, you know, you do one for, say I do something for one person, I'm going to do the same for the other. And it doesn't quite work like that. The other important thing is that it doesn't matter how many children you have, it's vital for mom and dad each to spend one-to-one time with each of those children.
I see.
Now I have 3, so obviously the more you have, the tougher it is. It doesn't have to be anything grand, but we used to have something in our family where Friday evenings I'd go shopping to the supermarket and I would just take one of them, you know, and they would actually fight. It's my turn, and so we would say no, this is this. So and so's turn.
It's adorable at that age. I mean, because when they get older, there'll be a time when they just not want to go to the supermarket.
Absolutely. But it's actually just about having that one-to-one time to make them, you know, feel special. Another thing is if one is invited to a party, so then my husband would then take our daughter out on a date, and you know maybe just go for an ice cream. It doesn't have to be anything big, but it's just spending one-to-one time.
Okay.
And in today's life, where everything is so hectic and so fast-paced, lots of parents find it difficult to do that.
Okay.
But actually, it's really important that it's done.
I see. Also, I mean, on that same note, believe it or not, a lot of people out there forget kids. I mean, even adults, right? They always sometimes think that, you know, sometimes one of their siblings were their parents' favorite. And sometimes favoritism does exist amongst siblings with parents also. What's your opinion?
Sadly, it does. And the reason is that, children have different personalities. And sometimes, a dad could have a very similar personality to say, the second son. So they get on better. Whereas the older son may be more laid back, and so dad doesn't get on that well. If you ever have a favorite, you must never show it. And really, parents, it's not fair to have a favorite, because each child is unique. So if you actually enjoy each of your children separately, that is the secret really to help with the rivalry.
Okay.
Another thing is that if you have children, make sure that they are interested in different things. For example, if you have two boys, encourage maybe one, obviously depends on their talent, but one could be interested in cricket, another one in swimming, another one in kayaking, or if it's to do with musical instrument, piano for one, drums for another. Make sure they don't actually, it's easy, right, to say, okay, piano class, all three go for piano class.
Okay.
But that's when there's competition and rivalry happening.
I see. Also, especially when you're a kid and you do have certain sibling rivalry going on, how badly can it psychologically affect them?
Well, actually it can affect them quite badly, which is why it's important that parents, from the time the children are young, parent in a way that they minimize that rivalry. Because I think you and I both know, when otherwise that kind of competition and that rivalry can extend to adulthood.
And what are the effects of it, especially when it extends to adulthood?
Well, you see, having a sibling is, as I said, the longest relationship you have. It is wonderful to have a member of your family who can stay with you through good times and bad. On the same note, having a feud, having a conflict can cause deep and personal pain.
I see.
And it's not helpful at all as an adult. Psychologically, it doesn't help.
I see. On that same note, we at MTV Sports, we've got a little video to show you on sibling rivalry in an adult's perspective. So have a look at this.
Fighting with siblings is only natural, but letting a feud fester into adulthood can cause serious damage. Here's how to put an end to your sibling rivalry. You will need understanding and the willingness to compromise. Step 1. Understand the roots of sibling rivalry. Studies show that conflicts often begin in childhood due to factors such as parental treatment, gender, family dynamics, and age differential. Step 2. Recognize your sibling as an actual person. Avoid the temptation to regress to childhood labels like the attention seeker or the perfect one. Your sibling has likely long outgrown that phase. Step 3. Pinpoint the source of friction. It's easy to shift the blame of your rivalry entirely onto your sibling, but acknowledging your own part will give you a deeper understanding of the conflict. Step 4. Hash out the hostility. Start by saying, "I'm sorry" for whatever part you may have played in the sibling rivalry. Researchers have found people automatically respond positively to hearing an apology. Then, focus on reaching an understanding and ways to fix the problem. If you live apart from your sibling, don't use a family gathering to confront them. Plan to meet in a neutral setting or talk over the phone. Step 5. Realize what you can and can't change about your relationship, and try to make peace with a compromise. You may not be able to choose your family, but you can do your best to overcome sibling rivalry. Did you know 80% of siblings